to a special edition of 4 Guys in a Comic. This is Red, and today I have a special treat for you. I'll be digging into my own personal collection and bringing you a review of the full 247 issue series of The Flash, Volume 2. Together, we'll unravel the mystery of who is Wally West the Flash. For those of you listening to this by podcast, the link below will allow you to watch this full video on YouTube or on Facebook, as we go issue by issue with pertinent scenes to this series. Now, for those of you watching this video, this review and many others are available at 4 Guys in a Comic on iTunes. Don't have iTunes? Not a problem. Go to Podcast Addict on Android, and this will allow you to download us. Or, on the PC, go to podbean.com and listen to us there. So let's get started! The Flash, Volume 2, Issue 1, came out in June of 1987 at a cover price of 75 cents, and the series ran until February of 2009. Now, our story starts off with Wally, only 20 years old. He only has $20 in his pocket, and he goes to a local convenience store and buys himself $5 worth of lottery tickets and 6 Baby Ruths. He arrives home to a surprise birthday party thrown by his friends, the Teen Titans. It's also worth noting he also makes money as a carrier. He also hates being called Kid Flash and wants to only be called The Flash. On a carrier job, he runs across a man in distress. Turns out the man was attacked by a Vandal Savage, who in turn attacked him. It's also worth noting that the Flash wins the lottery with those $5 worth of lottery tickets that he purchased. And the issue ends with him being attacked by Vandal Savage. You see, Savage is on the rise to power and has sworn to kill the Flash in order to protect his anonymity. Now, of course, the Flash has a girlfriend, and who is a fellow Teen Titan, and her name is Francine Kane, but she likes to go by Frances. Now, Cyborg, he agrees to be available anytime Wally, or the Flash, needs it. And the issue ends with Wally moving to a new city and buying a mansion and asking Frances to move in with him. But Frances eventually moves out because things are moving too fast. But Star Labs in Utah, Flash goes over to find out the extent of his abilities, where he meets Tina McGee, a scientist in the project to study Flash. They fall in love, but Tina is a married woman, abused by her husband, 32 years old, which is 12 years older than the Flash. Tina tells her husband, Jerry, that it's over, and she wants a divorce. Turns out, Jerry's a scientist that is not only abusive, but cares more for his work than Tina. Tina is beat by Jerry, and this was the last straw for her, so she leaves him and goes to live with Wally in his mansion. Jerry, in a rage to prove his worth, takes an injection of a steroid he has been working on in his lab called BQ-19, and he is transformed into Speed McGee and goes after Wally at his mansion, only to be defeated. Wally's father shows up, broke, wanting to live with Wally. By the way, Wally's parents are divorced. And Wally, in a promise to Tina to help her husband, Jerry, goes to see the famous scientist, Dr. Bortz, to see if Jerry can be cured. Dr. Bortz says the only man that can help Jerry is Dr. Orloff in the Polinsky Institute in Siberia. On a rescue mission in Siberia to retrieve Dr. Orloff, we discover that Dr. Orloff has been genetically creating his own speedsters, the Red Trinity. Red Trinity and Dr. Orloff are willing to defect to America to help the Flash, but Dr. Bortz to help Tina in helping Jerry. But they come under attack from their Russian counterparts, the Blue Trinity. Of course, Flash and Red Trinity stop and defeat the Blue Trinity just in time. And Wally's dad is a manhunter, and of course Wally disapproves. We are finally introduced into a character called Chester P. Runk, also known as the Chunk. Now, Chunk has the ability to transport matter from this dimension to another universe. Chester P. Runk, or as we know him as Chunk, was also very fat, but he was brilliant in the field of cosmology. He was fascinated with gold and diamonds and lived in a fantasy world, developing a hatred against the smooth and popular people around him. Despite these psychological problems, Chunk was accepted to MIT on a full scholarship. When he was in his early 20s, he developed a matter-transmitting machine. To experiment, he sent himself across the city, but it imploded, going inside of him, basically making him into a human black hole. He needed to continue feeding himself 47 times his own mass in dense material to avoid imploding into a strange universe that exists on the other side. Chunk sent people that had annoyed him into the universe. His therapist, a woman who had turned him down for a date, a man who had cut him off at the intersection, and about 100 more. Chunk lived on a boat in that dimension, inside which there was an altar and things that made him feel good. Eventually we see also Wally's mother moves into the mansion and immediately disapproves of Tina, an older married woman. Middlehampton also wants Wally to move out. They can't afford superheroes or supervillains causing destructions. In a battle to stop Chunk from stealing raw materials, Flash is sent to the other dimension, or Void as it's sometimes referred. Flash discovers hundreds of people Chunk has banished into the Void and works to rescue them. In the process, the Flash gets Chunk to agree to return everyone and helps Chunk return into civilization, making more money, sending the city's garbage problems into the Void. We discover that Vandal Savage is getting people addicted to a new drug in order for people to do things for him. It turns out that the drug gives people super speed, but after the drug wears off, the people die unless they get more. This drug is called Velocity 9. The Red Trinity loves American capitalism and has a courier service and are making tons of money with it. And of course, Wally discovers that his neighbors are crime lord Nick Bisoglia and has a side romance with his niece Trudy, who really is Nick's girlfriend. Of course, Vandal Savage wants Nick's territory and forces Nick to agree to work with him. In a plot with Trudy, Nick, and Savage, the Flash is captured and injected with Velocity 9, causing him to lose his powers. And Savage gets injected by his own drug and runs off, not to be seen. Flash returns home to find out his mother has lost Wally's fortune, and he is broke again. A broke Wally West is forced to move out of his mansion into a cheap hotel, while torn between Tina and his mother, whom are always fighting. Then Wally's mother discovers by accident that Tina isn't so bad after all, then starts liking her. Chuck and Wally start to become best friends, and Chuck is now making so much money making other people's stuff disappear into the void that he helps Wally with a little cash. Wally and Tina break it off mutually, and Tina goes back to her husband Jerry, who is now healed and reformed. Wally's mother gets a job helping Chunk since Chunk has a problem running his business. Then Wally starts dating Connie and takes her out to a party of supervillains that are reformed, and they have a wild time. Earth gets invaded in a DC Invasion crossover, so the Flash is sent to Cuba to help and work side by side with Fidel Castro. In appreciation to the Flash, Fidel Castro gives Wally a huge 21st birthday party in Cuba. Chuck starts to blow off Wally because he feels unappreciated, but Wally makes things right. We finally discover how Wally gets his uniforms. So we discover that Wally has Barry's old equipment for making a uniform. The problem is if the equipment was to ever get broken or lost, or if the material that he had was to ever run out, Wally would have a problem making a new uniform. With the help of Chunk, Tina, and Jeff, they make a device to help Wally get his powers back. But he gets too much power in the process and creates a path of destruction across America, destroying and killing people in its path. Now missing, Wally's friends set out to piece the clues together and find him. When they do, he is disfigured and delusional, but as all comic books normally are, storytelling, this was fixed and all charges against the Flash were dropped. Wally finally decides not only to move out from being around his mother, but to a whole new city altogether. The Velocity 9 junkies are getting rounded up and is now getting to be around his friends again, and of course with Joan Garrick, which happens to be Jay Garrick's widowed wife. Now Wally, as a Flash, gets captured by the Turtle, and he's put into a stressful hallucinogenic trip. But he gets rescued from his friends and reformed supervillains. Now, after all the stresses of life, Wally gets sucked into a retreat that's more of a cult following, and ends up being the spokesperson for the group to recruit new members. Turns out his father was behind it, and Wally eventually discovers the sham. But, of course, on the resort, TV anchorwoman Linda, who was undercover to expose the secret, got possessed with an 800-year-old Irish man. Of course, Wally is out to help her with the aid of Dr. Alchemy. Dr. Alchemy ends up fighting with his doppelganger, but he wins. Then Tina is in trouble and asks for Wally's help. It seems that the Kilgore have returned. The Kilgore, Wally accidentally freed out west during a speed test in Utah when they first met. The Kilgore apparently destroyed its home planet for being imperfect, then roamed the universe looking for imperfection. Unfortunately, it chose Earth and decided to sterilize its population. Only the complete shutdown of all electrical power on the globe can make it collapse. As it turns out, the Irishman possessed within Tina, Seamus O'Rilkig, is an anagram for Kilgore. The Kilgore were possessing Tina because it realized that it would always be fighting metahumans, and if it was destroyed, he would be forgotten. So, he decided instead to be a genie in a bottle, using people to be eternal. He leaves Tina's body and disappears. But not before giving Flash a secret gift for him to use in his time of need. Gorilla Grodd finally makes his appearance in issue 45 by taking mental control and organizing all of the animals within the city. The Flash, now working for the police department, is teamed up with Detective Cleveland, and none other than the Vixen shows up to work with them in defeating Grodd, but in the end, the Wonder Dog Rex saves the day. Vandal Savage shows back up, now aged from being injected earlier by the Velocity 9. He has kidnapped Wally's mother and is forcing the Flash to help him to end the Earth's drug problem by oversupplying the world with drugs, and so druggies will die off and the world's price on drugs will drop to nothing in price, forcing dealers out of business. Now Savage is trapping all of the Flash's friends, forcing him into a fight. Then he shoots the Flash dead in front of his friends. Oh, and yeah, we have a teenage girl possessed flying around as well. Flash is revived back to life due to the implant that the Kilgore gave him as a gift earlier. In an epic fight with him against Vandal Savage and his old foes possessing by that teenage girl vanish. Oh yeah, and Wally is rich again, as the heir from the supervillain Icicle. With legal problems, the IRS and Wally's inheritance all tied up with legal issues, the IRS gives Wally the choice to help them or go to jail. Naturally, Wally accepts the offer to get the tax evasive problems taken care of. The Pied Piper announces that he is gay, and Flash teams up with Superman to save Jimmy Olsen. So now, the Flash, in a video recording of the Icicle's will, discovers he inherited half of his fortune, but the family gets outraged and leads to a murder mystery in the mansion in the middle of a blizzard. But finally, with the help of the Pied Piper, Wally and the Icicle's granddaughter decide to use the money to set up the Barry Allen Foundation to help the poor. Then Doyle, the Icicle's granddaughter, decides to take up her grandfather's mantle, but as a superhero to fight crime. And Connie leaves Wally because she's in love with Chuck. And, Wally got a wedding invite for his mom's wedding. A freelance agent for the Italian government named Rudolph Valentino will be her husband. And Wally and the Pied Piper have a serious talk about AIDS, condoms, and how the Piper has to be careful as a gay man. Of course, no series would be complete without a backstory of how Wally got his powers. A couple of issues showing us and teaching us how Wally got them the same way Barry Allen did. Also shows up is that Barry decides to take Wally under his wing as his partner, and it includes a heart-filled story of Wally's love for his Aunt Iris and Barry Allen with both his untimely deaths. An all-new Dr. Alchemy makes his return. He turns Flash into gold, but of course, he vibrates free and captures Dr. Alchemy. But clear only before Wally confesses his love to Linda. In issue 73, for no explanation, Wally is having Christmas Eve with none other than Jay Garrick, the original Flash. When out of the blue comes none other than Barry Allen at the front door on Christmas. It is explained that during Wally's last battle with Dr. Alchemy, Barry's energy somehow reformed itself, restoring his humanity, but not his memories. He wandered for days trying to clear his mind, but upon seeing a statue of himself, he remembered everything. But Barry is having a hard time adjusting. For him, the past decade was just a few seconds for him. Iris dead, and Wally now, Flash, he is going through an identity crisis. Barry lets Wally get sucked into a trap by a group called the Combine and leaves Wally for dead in hopes to reclaim his title of the one and only Flash. Yet unknown to Barry, Wally survived. Now Barry is on a destruction spree of revenge for the city for getting him, but he is being challenged and stopped in every turn by Jay Garrick, Johnny Quick, and Max Mercury. But as it turns out, Barry isn't really Barry at all. It's Professor Zoom, or as we also like to know him by, Reverse Flash. We got a full backstory on the origin of Professor Zoom and how in this time he is in the past. But in the 25th century, he is the largest fan of Barry Allen and has gotten to learn everything about him. He changed his appearance and spent his vast fortune to only look, but also to be just like his idol. Professor Zoom traveled into the past just to meet Barry Allen as the Flash, only to find out he arrived in a time when he was already dead. While visiting the Flash Museum in tribute to Barry Allen, Professor Zoom discovers that the Flash's greatest enemy in life is the one and only himself. This set Professor Zoom on a rampage to destroy everything that Barry Allen hold dear, including Barry Allen himself. But in an epic battle with Wally, Professor Zoom was defeated, tricked back into his own time with his memories of the encounter of Wally erased from his memory. The only question that remains is in the book that Professor Zoom left behind. Is it from the future? Is it from Professor Zoom? Who wrote it? And why is the author named Iris Allen, who is currently dead? Wally now has an earpiece that picks up the police radio scanners, and thanks to his pal the Pied Piper, we also cracked into the Batman's bat phone as a side joke. An old flame of Wally's returns, Frances Kane, and she's of course trying to hurt Wally. Of course, Linda doesn't take it well when Wally jogs her memory back. But it doesn't take long for Wally's old flame and Linda to become friends and start male bashing him. Wally West learns to play with the latest craze at the time, Pogs. A mysterious person plants a hidden camera in Wally's house in an effort to watch him and crank up his stress levels. Then Wally gets a subpoena to add to that stress. Turns out his actions of saving a mall result in a woman named Allison Armitage getting injured during an explosion, and she is out to sue the Flash for damages. Wally loses his case due to his stress and a public outburst and attacking a lawyer in the courtroom. He loses his money within the Barry Allen Foundation and his rights to use his costume and powers, and he's convinced that it's Abracadabra that's behind it all. And his assumption was correct. In the end, the Flash captures Kadabra and gets a full confession on tape, clearing his name legally, but not his lack of reputation. Worried that he may never be the fast enough to save another person again, he demands to make himself faster, so he seeks out Johnny Quick and his formula to make things faster. Now that he has the formula, he is able to activate it when he needs it, and moves so fast that for as long as he wishes, it is like time is completely stopped. And then we get a glimpse in the future of 12 June 2995, when Iris Allen and a male illegally went into a time stream to 14 May 1994. And Iris returns, revealing that she was sent to this time as an infant and only learned the truth of her origins shortly before her death. Upon her passing, her future parents used experimental time travel technology to draw her life force back to the era and give her a new body made to look like the old one she had before she had died. And they reunited with Barry, but he lived only a short time in that period, but left her with 2 children, Dan and Dawn, and those kids grew up as brother and sister, crime-fighting team against a race called the Dementors. Dawn had a son, Bart Allen, with full super speed, but his metabolism made him age at a super rate. So, Iris brought Bart to this time to get Wally to save him. Wally confides with Iris that when he was younger and before he got his powers, one night someone walked into his life, said he was an older relative, an uncle or something. He talked with him and said he knew how he felt and then he promised Wally something. He swore that someday, if Wally West wasn't afraid, every dream he had ever had would come true. And now Wally wants to find the truth. Who was that man? So Wally starts training Bart, and Bart decides to go by the name Impulse. Wally is experiencing temporal instabilities when going too fast. He has been able to run fast enough to see a future that scares him. And now the faster he runs, the more inhuman he becomes. At high speeds, flesh and blood give way to a new form of energy. Wally's decided that if he should be lost into this energy that is taunting him, he needs a replacement. Since Bart is still training and isn't ready yet, that responsibility as the Flash should go to Jessie Chambers, the daughter of Johnny Quick. If Wally's vision of the future holds true, Keystone City will be destroyed and he will be gone as well. During an attack of the city by Cobra, Wally is succumbed to the energy and disappears in a flash of light when saying goodbye to Linda. Wally passed on the mantle of the Flash to Bart, mostly because Jessie was hurt so bad that she may never run again. And then Bart, as Impulse the nature that he has, attacked the Cobra Commander and is shot with a photon cannon, but he healed quickly. In an all-out assault by Cobra, not only in Keystone but across the U.S., we see the heroes across the nation help out, such as Superman, Man of Steel, Batman, Robin, and Green Lantern. And when all was about to be lost, Flash shows up in a flash of light, and Cobra was defeated. Jessie was healed, and Flash is back and won with the Speed Force. Now, with the Flash returning, it also brings with him a new understanding of what he can do with his powers, such as if he concentrates and runs through moving objects, they can explode. The speed field around him can add his own kinetic energy to boost velocity. For the first time, he can actually share the speed with another person, or by making any moving object able to move faster that's closer to him. Flash starts to see Mirror Master's reflection periodically in odd places, until Flash gets sucked in by Mirror Master himself into limbo. And of course, Mirror Master explains that he fell in love and his girl died and needed Flash's help to find her doppelganger. Of course, that was a lie, a trap to get the Flash to find her when she wasn't really dead, but only hiding because she feared Mirror Master. In the end, the Flash wins, and the Mirror Master gets arrested. Now with the Flash, the storyline changes with a villain called Savitar, who is stealing the speed from all speedsters except the Flash, and transferring that speed to his ninja army. But of course, Flash finds a way to restore everyone's power just in time for an epic fight between the good and bad speedsters Savitar is hidden in his castle retreat. Savitar and the Flash are both powered by an extra-dimensional energy known as the Speed Force, a Valhalla for speedsters to exist on the other side of light. Savitar believes he has a definitive right to the secrets it offers. He longs to break the threshold of light speed and master the Force, but can't as long as the Flash lives, bringing Savitar and the Flash battling it out. Flash finally defeats Savitar by drawing him into the Speed Force and letting Savitar be consumed by it. Wally, on the other hand, doesn't want to be drawn into it and lets himself return to where he belongs. But when he returns, he has changed. And as it turns out, it isn't Wally that has returned, but a future Flash named John, who is sane with Piper and Linda while protecting the city, while Wally is lost in a place unfamiliar to him. Turns out Wally is in the 64th century in a newly rebuilt city that worships him like a god. Uneasy with all the attention and the fact that the people have short attention spans, he leaves the one person that has a smart head on his shoulders in charge, Calais, and he zips his way into the time stream. But this time, Flash traveled to a point in the time after Barry Allen died and met up with his children, Dawn and Dawn Allen. And with the twins' help, he jumps back into the time stream again, but not before he encourages the twins to use their powers to help people and stop living in the shadows. This time, Flash jumps into the 27th century, and his memories are fading as he loses himself to the time stream in the Speed Force. He meets up with John, who in the 20th century is falling in love with Linda, which is causing Wally to lose his memories. and we discover that John is really in the 20th century and wants to be a hero trying to stop a disastrous ice age created by Chilblain that kills billions and stops the world from advancing for the next 200 years. Oh, and Chilblain has Iris as a prisoner, torturing her and forcing her to reveal everything about the future to him. The Ice Age has started, and John, the future Flash, doesn't know how to stop it. Wally returns home to find Linda frozen, and he gets her to Star Labs, yet they can't find a way to cure her. Both Flashes stop the villains and the Ice Age from happening, but the police robots from the 20th century show up to capture John Fox, the future Flash. With John's help, Wally uses the Speed Force to vibrate Linda's molecules and revive her from her frozen state. A new problem now has arisen, not only for the Flash, but for the world. The Earth's sun was targeted for a creature called the Sun Eater, and all available heroes that are space-worthy are out to stop it. But the problem lies that the sun may yet still supernova, and currently Earth is freezing and is under low temperatures, with lots and lots of snow, causing the worst types of people trying to take advantage of the crisis. And Linda, being a reporter, knowing the truth, decides to tell the world on a special broadcast that all may be lost. I highly recommend reading this issue. Now, issue 20 takes up with a new story, without wrapping up the old one. It starts with a political rally and the mayor asking the Flash to leave the city forever. But the Piper gets threatened by an old foe of Barry Allen's, the Top, and nobody believes him, so he's out to get the Top himself. As it turns out, the Top is the vice president-elect, set out to take over as president. But, of course, it is stopped by the Flash just as the Top is about to assassinate the president-elect. The city of Keystone is pushing harder for the Flash to leave their city, and the city of Santa Marta in California wants the Flash to be their hero and live there. So Wally agrees to be their hero, but returns home to Linda at night in Keystone since she doesn't want to give up her wonderful job as a reporter. But the city is now trying to push Linda out of the way as well, by starting to force her out of her job and forcing her out of her home. But the story gets a new twist as a zombified rogues gallery comprised of Captain Boomerang, Heatwave, Captain Cold, Mirror Master, and the Weather Wizard are destroying and killing people of Keystone. And unfortunately for the Flash, they can't be hurt or killed. So, in an attempt to stop the Flash, he signals the Justice League for help, and then he goes to hell to confront Neuron, because some months ago, their souls were captured by the demon Neuron, and apparently their bodies are still somewhere free of his power. Neuron makes a simple deal with Wally: stop loving Linda, and he will stop the rogues from destroying the city, its people, and the Justice League, who can't seem to stop them. So Wally takes the deal and leaves Linda for good. But as it turns out, Linda made a deal with Neuron before Wally, and it seems Neuron wanted the power of love to open a gateway into heaven. But love was too great of a power for him, so he made another deal with Linda and Wally. They get their love back. In exchange, he returns the city and all the damages and dead people back to how it was before. Now, Wally gets into a small 3-issue storyline about an evil supervillain, suit with a life force of its own, determined to kill the Flash and destroy the city. Out of the story are the most important things we discover is that Wally can share the Speed Force with the fellow speedsters, as well as wrap himself in it like a suit as well. We come into a small story, or a new one, called The Human Race. Simply, a group of beings called Cosmic Gamblers are betting on the Flash to race against the imaginary friend, Croaky, for the fate of their respective worlds. And, would you believe it? The Flash not only won, but tricked the Cosmic Gamblers and saved both worlds. So Wally finally gets the nerve and decides to buy Linda an engagement ring and propose marriage after getting marriage advice from Jay Garrick. Wally finally proposes after returning Linda back from the dead when he was killed and attacked by the Black Flash. The Black Flash is nothing more than death itself for speedsters such as the Flash. Now, Wally and Linda are finally at the altar to get married, surrounded by family and friends. Suddenly, we find the Flash in his living room, single and alone, thinking that the name Linda Park means something, and his friends and his family have no clue what the name means. And when we find Linda in her wedding dress, captured and then back in a time before Wally was even born. We move on to a 6-part series called Cobalt Blue. Cobalt Blue, aka Malcolm Thawne, is the twisted twin brother of Barry Allen. Thawne swore vengeance against all Flashes, past and present, using a magic gem of incalculable power passed from generation to generation. Thawne's own descendants targeted Flashes for the most of the next 1,000 years. Wally West and his allies moved through time to stop them, saving dozens of speedsters. In the end, Wally uses the Speed Force, running fast enough to get a death grip on Thawne to eventually stop him. Linda finally breaks free of her prison, that is within the time stream, only to be brought into a parallel universe with a Wally West that is crazy because when his Linda died during the Battle of Cobra attacked, he went mad. We also discover that her capture is none other than Abracadabra, who captures her again, as well as Wally from the parallel universe, and gets Wally from the other universe right after he stops Cobalt Blue. And Wally West is our current time stream from 10 years ago in the future. Grittier and falling in love with a detective by the name of Angela Margolin. It's also important to mention that the only two people that remember Linda at this time is Impulse, who every time he tries to mention her, he's blown off as that's his imaginary friend. And of course, the 10-year older Flash knows who Linda is, but doesn't want to talk about her. Now, the 10-year older Flash proposes to Angela in a gondola in Venice, Italy. And of course, she says yes. But the replicant shows up and causes them to disappear during the battle and into Kadabra's lair to start a team-up. Confused yet? Well, hold on. It's about ready to get a little bumpier. The parallel Wally West goes by the name Walter, who in this universe meets up with Linda and our Wally West and gets into a fight with Kadabra. Walter and Wally merge into one for a short time, giving Walter mental stability and all of the Wally's memories. Then Kadabra kills Wally and Linda. Then we discover that the 10-year-old Wally is in our timeline is really Walter West that came into this timeline 10 years later. Phew! Okay, so in a nutshell, who we thought was the older 10-year Wally West was really our current Wally. Make sense? If not, read the issues. Okay, moving on from there. So here it is where it starts to wrap it up. Zoom joins Cobra as replicant, but in the end it is not Zoom, but our Wally West in a Zoom costume. Wally tricks Kadabra into making the world remember Linda again, and then uses mirrors to bounce a forgetting spell back into Kadabra to make him forget who he is. As for a replicant, Wally had Piper infect him with a nanovirus that stopped him. But we finally see Wally and Linda get married, and Walter unfortunately has to say goodbye to Angela, for it seems that Walter disrupted the timeline and he must return without her, or the two universes will collapse. Walter says his goodbyes and runs into the time stream and returns not to his universe, but to ours, and finding himself in a comic book store filled with DC comics of the current titles of the day, like Wonder Woman, Justice League of America, Green Lantern, and Superman. He finds on the shelf issue 159 of The Flash, which we're discussing right now, and sees that we're talking about him. At the end of the comic shows that after he and Angela separated and he went into our reality, Angela still remembers him, so he speeds away to find his own universe before he creates problems in this one. So Wally and Linda start off on their honeymoon, only to keep getting attacked by Cobra in revenge against Linda. And it turns out that their travel agent was Christine, who also wants Linda dead, so she can have Wally all to herself. But Wally stops everyone and even succeeds in stealing Christine's powers from her. In a new storyline, we come across a cult that captures and stabs the Flash. Its leader, Citadad, in the chest, leaving a lightning-shaped scar. Now, the scar serves as a focus for his speed force. The cult also blew up his house. Linda and Wally decided to take an apartment in downtown Keystone. We get introduced to a new supervillain called Tar Pit. The cult that was after the Flash also went around killing anyone associated in Wally's world, including the old girlfriend of Wally's, a police officer called Julie Jackman. It seems that Julie was a single mother and that she orphaned a son, and that son may possibly be Wally's child. But the weather wizard comes into the scene stating that the child is his and needs to be dissected so he can add the child's powers to his own. But of course, he is stopped and captured by the Flash. The Plunderer joins the Rogues with a bullet-powered white dwarf star matter. So basically, roundabout, he has a bullet made by a dwarf star, and he shoots Chunk in the chest with it, and which opens a singularity and causing a black hole to open up and swallow the city. Fortunately, the Flash was able to remove it and stop the disaster just in the nick of time. The Pied Piper confesses to murdering his parents and is arrested by the police. Then Iris Allen returns into the story, wanting to be active again in Wally and Linda's lives. And she also adopted Josh, the Weather Wizard's son, because in the future he will be a superhero. Captain Cold finally gets his revenge for the death of his sister and murders Chilblain by throwing him off a roof onto a pile of icicles. Now, Joan Garrick announces that she has acute leukemia and she is dying. Her and Jay are going to move away to Denver for treatment. The Flash is now in a battle on one side it's the Thinker, and he has taken over Keystone City and he's out to kill him. And on the other side, it's a newer and deadlier rogue gallery that infected him with a virus. The rogue gallery took over Central City and is working hard to kill Flash as well. The Thinker eventually captures Flash and uses him as the world's fastest computer processor. But of course, the Flash gets out of it by speeding up his mind so fast that it unravels and disrupts the data into raw form. With the support of every citizen from both Central City and Keystone, they form a united front with a Flash to defeat the Rogue Gallery as a team. But wait, Linda and Wally find out they are expecting. And even more surprising is that they are expecting twins. And we discover that it was the Rogues that falsely led Joan Garrick to think she was dying, as well as shooting Chunk and framing Piper. As the Flash comes to free from all his problems, the Piper then escapes the prison and is now a fugitive on the run out to clear his name. Now a new story arc emerges where Gorilla Grodd breaks free from Iron Heights Penitentiary and frees all of the meta-human prisoners within the compound. Now Flash tracks Grodd to Africa and defeats him in Gorilla City. The leader takes Grodd into custody and wipes the Flash's mind of the city's location as he returns Wally back home. Now, Hunter Zolomon, a city police officer, was injured during Grodd's breakout, and now he is paralyzed and in a wheelchair. And he is just after the Flash to help him set things right and asks him basically to use the cosmic treadmill at the Flash Museum to go back in time to stop the past. But unfortunately, the Flash says, no, that's just not a good idea. Time travel is not anything that should be taken lightly, and refuses to help Hunter in correcting the things that were wronged. So now, issue 199 gets pretty heavy, and a shock that Hunter Zolomon takes on the new identity as Zoom. Well, Hunter isn't happy with what the Flash decides, so he decides to go to the Flash Museum himself. He rewires the cosmic treadmill and fixes it up. Gets on it to go back in the past when the treadmill explodes, giving Hunter some new powers where he's able to run quickly through a parallel time stream. Understanding what he has to do now, he then decides to take on the identity of Zoom, where then he goes out to the city and wreaks havoc. But he also decides to capture Linda. When he does so, he snaps his fingers and causes a sonic boom to travel through the air, giving her a miscarriage. Grabbing hold of Flash close, he tells him that he was supposed to have a son and a daughter, but now he never will, nor will he ever be able to have children again, and that he will continue to do these things until the Flash learns what it means to be a better hero. And only by learning what loss is will he be able to become a better hero. Now, issue 20 starts really picking up the pace here. Wally is able to defeat Zoom and put him into a suspended animation. Now, Jessie loses her powers and in the process takes a job with the Justice Society. Wally and Linda start shedding tears over their loss, and Wally goes to Barry's monument to have a talk with himself and declares that he's giving up as the Flash forever. Now, Barry shows up from the future. Since Barry is in the future, he knows that this will be the first of 3 of the hardest days in a life and decides to travel to this time period to lend Wally emotional support. Now, Hal Jordan as the Spectre also joins Barry and Wally and grants Wally a gift that Wally wants, and that is that no one will ever remember him. But unfortunately, that includes Linda and himself. So nobody's going to remember that Wally West is the Flash. Now, Wally takes a job with the Keystone Police Department as an automotive mechanic during the graveyard shift. While he still doesn't know who he is, he's walking the streets and he is confronted by a mysterious man who hands Wally a ring and tells him it's time to run again. Wally, playing with the ring, accidentally discovers that a costume is within it and decides to put on the costume when trouble starts happening within the city. And Ashley Zolomon, Hunter Zolomon's ex-wife, makes an appearance. But then we get Batman making an appearance as well, and he helps Wally remember everything about his past. It turns out Batman figured it out when the Flash went missing within the Justice League, and he started to do his own detective work until the pieces all started to fit together. But now that Wally remembers everything, he is afraid to tell Linda, since Linda blames the Flash for the miscarriage. But Wally finally does decide to tell Linda, and Linda remembers everything. But she still decides to leave Wally for some time to be alone. Now the city rejoices as the Flash returns after being gone for so long that they have a parade in his honor. Of course, the Rogues show up to rain on it. And the city also opens up a new and better Flash Museum. But the Justice League Society shows up demanding answers on where the Flash has been and who is he. But Wally is persistent in not telling them who he is and runs away. Superman chases him down and finally gets Wally to talk. As soon as the Flash removes the mask, Superman remembers everything. So Wally decides to make every hero he knows and trusts remember who he is so that Barry's name won't be forgotten. So, where do our villains currently stand? Gorilla Grodd breaks out, but he gets defeated by Flash and thrown back into jail. The Turtle and Zoom escape, and Mirror Master has a cocaine problem. And Wally is now a suspect in the attempted murder of Ashley Zolomon, since the brakes went out on her police car and he was the one fixing them the night before. But as it turns out, Wally did fix her brakes incorrectly by forgetting to put a piece in there while he was distraught thinking about Linda being gone. Alright, so we discover Barry Allen had a secret that when the adversaries of the Justice League learned their true identities, Barry and a group of the other members voted to wipe their memories. Zatanna, one of the greatest magicians in the world, was the one that actually did it. But there were problems with one of the villains in particular. They changed Dr. Light from a psychotic threat to a complete imbecile. They altered his personality. They believed this happened to the others also when their memories were erased. They just weren't aware of it before. After Dr. Light, even though they swore they would never do it again, Barry crossed another line. Roscoe Dillon, a.k.a. the Top, had learned everything about Barry. Dillon threatened his parents, his friends, but even after everything else, Barry didn't want to hurt the Top. Barry wanted to help him. So, Zatanna pushed his consciousness to the front. She helped rearrange his abnormal mind. And, for a while, the Top became an ally to the Flash. But the pressure of confronting himself about his past and the feelings of guilt attacked him all at once, and it was just too much. It drove him mad, and the Top just disappeared. Barry knew he would one day have to be back, and that it would be up to Wally to deal with him. But from beyond the grave, Barry asked Wally to find the Top and give him his mind back from a letter delivered to Wally from the Green Arrow. Of course, Wally agrees to it, but there is a problem. When isn't there a problem? This whole secret from the League's past exploded when the wife of the elongated man was murdered, and then the other loved ones were threatened, including Lois Lane, which made Clark flip out. Bruce has really been on edge, more than usual, over this whole occurrence, and someone knows all of the secrets and wants to hurt them where it matters. Wally throws himself into his work at the police garage as a mechanic and wishes someone could find Linda for him. Even Oracle doesn't know where she is. And they found the Top thanks to Ashley Zolomon, leaving behind a toy factory he used to visit as a kid. Linda finally returns to Wally and takes her reporter job back. Now that the world doesn't know her connection anymore to the Flash, she can be taken seriously and won't be judged again as the wife of the Flash. Zoom escapes from his prison with the help of Cheetah in exchange to help her be faster. The two of them battle it out with the Flash and Wonder Woman, and since Zoom is a person out of time, he remembers that the Flash is Wally. So now a new story arc is emerging, where Heatwave, a reformed rogue, now works for the FBI. Soliciting help from other reformed villains such as the Pied Piper, the original Trickster, and Magenta in an effort to bring to justice the villain rogues of Keystone City. Mirror Master, the new Trickster, Weather Wizard, the new Captain Boomerang, and their leader Captain Cold. But the Top shows up with even more bad guys and starts freeing the minds of all the reformed rogues. As we discover, when the Top was working with Barry Allen, he developed a mental power and worked on mentally reforming all the villain rogues that he could. Now he has released them, and they all turned them back into the villains and started to attack the Flash. Wally wouldn't turn his back on his friend the Pied Piper, so he removed his Flash mask to help the Piper remember that who he was. The Piper, knocked out by the trauma, was carried by the Flash to his apartment so Linda could take care of him. Now, Flash is up against all the rogues himself, and the Mirror Master has brought Dr. Alchemy and Gorilla Grodd into the fight. And just as you think it couldn't get any worse, Zoom shows up with none other than the original Zoom from the future, with the original Flash chained to the cosmic treadmill as its power supply. Now, the new Zoom, Hunter Zolomon, quickly speeds his ex-wife Ashley to safety at Linda's apartment, saying they need to talk and the future is at hand. Now, both Zooms are making Wally's relive all these painful memories of his past when none other than Barry Allen shows up on his own cosmic treadmill. This being Wally's second hardest day of his life. Now, Barry takes down Zoom and sends him back into the future, while Wally West takes down his Zoom, sending him back into his parallel time stream. Wally returns to find Linda in the hospital due to the spontaneous conception via time travel. Seems that when Wally and Zoom were fighting in the past, he inadvertently saved his unborn children. Now, all the rogues have a talk and decided perhaps it's time to leave Keystone City for good. So, Vandal Savage makes a reappearance this time. He is the leader of a religious cult working to bring down a meteor to Earth to reduce its population so he can build a new world. Eventually, the Flash stops him and reverses the pull of the meteor, taking Savage with it. Time has now passed, and Wally's kids, Iris and Jai, have grown up, and Linda and Wally have decided, since they have superpowers, that they need to be groomed as superheroes. Linda has almost finished her MD, and the Flash hasn't been seen in Keystone for a long time. We also discover that while Wally and Linda visit an alien world, the twins' metabolism suddenly kicked into super speed, and they age quicker than normal. But during an attack on the city, the Flash and his kids battle along the side of the Justice League. However, the Justice League doesn't approve of him using his young kids at this age as superheroes, and Batman, of all people, gives a lecture about how bad it is. Wally responds with, "How dare you, coming from a guy who's gone through 4 Robins." But Wally and Linda continue to do things their way, since the twins' accelerated aging means that in months or days they could age years. But the West family is beginning to have money problems, and Wally is finding it difficult to find work. But then enters the Queen Bee, making an entrance and steals Wally's kids and almost kills Linda. But with the help of the Justice League, Wally gets everything straightened out. Wally finally taps into the Speed Force and was able to stop the twins' accelerated growth. But with everything going on, it's time for him to put family first and to start living a regular life. Well, this concludes the 247-issue run of Wally West as the Flash. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out our other podcasts from 4 Guys in a Comic as well. And also go to our Facebook page and give us a like. And don't forget Twitter, where you can get daily factoids about your comic heroes and villains. Until next time.
Excelsior!